Some stories don't begin with happiness or hope. Some begin with a heartbreak so heavy that even the richest man in the world cannot carry it alone. This is one of those stories. It starts on a cold, gray morning, one of those mornings that feels empty even before the day truly begins. At the far side of Greenstone Memorial Park, in the quietest corner of the cemetery, a billionaire named Charles Donovan stood in front of a white marble gravestone. He wasn't surrounded by bodyguards. No reporters. No entourage. Just a father, visiting the resting place of the daughter he lost 2 years earlier. Her name was Lily, and she had been the only part of Charles's life that made him feel human. He came every month, always alone, always in silence, but this morning was different. As he approached the grave, he stopped. His eyebrows pulled together in confusion. Someone was already there. A man in a faded gray janitor's uniform was kneeling beside Lily's gravestone. His shoulders were trembling, tears were rolling down his cheeks. Beside him stood a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, holding a small bundle of wildflowers. She looked scared, like she didn't know whether to stay or run. Charles felt a strange mix of confusion and anger. Who was this man? Why was he crying at his daughter's grave? He cleared his throat. "Excuse me," Charles said softly. This is my daughter's gravestone." The janitor startled, almost falling back. He quickly wiped his eyes and stood, pulling the little girl behind him protectively. I'm sorry, sir," the man stammered. "I didn't mean to intrude. We'll leave." The little girl tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, wait." Charles blinked. Something in the girl's voice, something in the way she looked at the grave, it told him there was more to this. "No," Charles said gently. "Please, stay. Just tell me why you're here." The janitor hesitated, eyes red and tired. He looked down at the little girl, then back at the gravestone. "My name is Eddie Ramos," he said. "I work here. And this is my daughter, Maya." Maya stepped forward quietly and placed the bundle of wildflowers at the foot of Lily's stone. Charles stared, speechless. "I'm sorry, Mr. Donovan," Eddie continued. "But your daughter, she saved my little girl's life." Charles's breath caught in his throat. He had known Lily was kind. He had known she volunteered at hospitals, shelters, and schools. But he had never heard this story. "Please," he whispered, "tell me." Eddie swallowed hard and began. 2 years ago, just weeks before Lily's accident, Eddie had been going through the hardest time of his life. His wife had passed away unexpectedly, leaving him alone to raise Maya. The medical bills had drowned him. He had lost their home. And he had taken the janitor job at the cemetery simply because it was the only place that would hire him at the time. But the biggest struggle was Maya. She had stopped speaking after her mother's death. She barely smiled. She barely ate. She was just fading. One afternoon, while Eddie was working, he brought Maya with him because he couldn't afford childcare. She wandered off and got lost near the garden area. And that's where Lily found her. According to Eddie, Lily had spent an hour sitting with Maya, talking to her gently, showing her flowers, telling her stories, and for the first time since her mother's death, Maya spoke. She told Lily her name. "She brought my daughter back to me," Eddie said, wiping his eyes. "She gave her a reason to smile again. A reason to live." Charles felt a burning behind his eyes. He didn't know this. He never knew this. Lily had been doing good in the world quietly, so quietly that not even her own father, a man with every resource imaginable, knew the full extent of her kindness. And ever since she passed, Eddie continued, voice shaking, "Maya asks me to bring flowers here every month. To thank her." Charles looked at the little girl. She was touching the gravestone gently, as if greeting an old friend. Then Maya turned to Charles and whispered, "She was my angel." Something inside Charles broke, and healed, at the same time. He knelt down and hugged her. The three of them stood there for several minutes in silence. Finally, Charles spoke. "Why didn't you ever tell me? Or anyone?" Eddie gave a sad, embarrassed smile. "I'm nobody, sir. Just a janitor. I didn't think someone like you would want to hear from someone like me." Charles felt a sting, not of anger, but guilt. He had built his fortune through hard work and intelligence, yes. But somewhere along the way, he had built walls too. Thick ones. Walls that separated him from normal people. People like Eddie. People like Lily. And maybe, that was part of why he lost her. He had been working overseas when the accident happened. He hadn't made it back in time to say goodbye. Eddie continued softly, Maya cries sometimes because she wishes she could thank your daughter one last time. Charles swallowed, unable to speak. Then he forced out the only words he could manage. Thank you, for remembering her. For keeping her kindness alive. But Eddie shook his head. No, Mr. Donovan. Thank you. Because of your daughter, my little girl is smiling again. And she wants to grow up to be just like her. That day changed something in Charles Donovan. For the first time since Lily's death, he didn't feel alone. For the first time, he felt like her life still meant something. Like she was still touching the world, through this little girl. He asked Eddie if they could talk more over a cup of coffee. Eddie hesitated. Sir, I don't want to waste your time. You're not wasting anything, Charles replied gently. Please, I'd like to know the people my daughter cared about. And so they sat together at a small cafe near the cemetery. Maya sipped hot chocolate quietly while Eddie told Charles more stories. Stories about Lily helping elderly visitors, comforting grieving families, leaving encouraging notes on benches for strangers to find. She was sunshine, Eddie said. Even on her bad days. Charles smiled through tears. Yes, she always was. Over the next hour, something unexpected happened. Charles and Eddie, two fathers from completely different worlds, connected over their shared pain, and their shared gratitude for a girl who had changed them both. Weeks passed. Charles returned to the cemetery, but not alone. He started bringing books, flowers, and sometimes small gifts for Maya. They would sit by Lily's grave and talk. Sometimes Maya would draw pictures for Lily. Sometimes Charles would tell stories about her. Gradually, Maya began laughing again. After a while, Charles realized something. Visiting the cemetery didn't hurt as much anymore. Because now, instead of being a place of loss, it had become a place of connection. One day, after spending time together, Charles walked Eddie to his car. I wanted to ask you something, Charles said. Eddie looked nervous. Is everything okay? Charles smiled warmly. Better than okay. Eddie, I'd like to help you. And Maya. Eddie blinked, stunned. Sir, that's not necessary. It is, Charles said gently. Because my daughter saved your little girl. And I never got the chance to thank her. But I can honor her, by helping you build a life where Maya can thrive. Eddie's voice broke. Charles, I can't accept charity. This isn't charity, Charles said. This is gratitude. He offered Eddie a position at one of his companies, one with better pay, flexible hours, and full benefits. He even offered Maya a scholarship fund for her future education. Eddie covered his face, overcome with emotion. Why are you doing all this for us? He whispered. Charles placed a hand on his shoulder. Because your daughter said Lily was her angel. But maybe, Lily guided me to mine too. Love never dies. Months passed. Seasons changed. And unexpectedly, beautifully, a new kind of family formed. On weekends, Charles would take Maya to the park, where she would show him the flowers Lily once taught her about. Eddie and Charles would share stories, laughter, and sometimes tears. And for the first time in years, Charles felt something he had long thought lost. Hope. One morning, as they stood together at the cemetery, just as they had the day they met, Maya placed a drawing on Lily's grave. It showed 3 people holding hands. A janitor, a billionaire, and a little girl between them. Underneath, she had written, "Thank you for bringing us together." Charles looked at Eddie. Eddie looked at Charles. And they both smiled with tears in their eyes. Because sometimes life breaks you, but sometimes, if you're lucky, it gives you a reason to start again. Through kindness, through love, through people you never expected to meet. Lily may have left the world early, but through a janitor and his little girl, her light lived on. And in their shared grief, 2 strangers found healing. And the beginnings of a new family shaped not by blood, but by the love she left behind. Moral. Even after a good heart stops beating, its kindness keeps echoing in the lives it touched.